This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
More moves coming down in the NBA as we kick off hour 2 here of Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We learned last night, official, James Harden to Cleveland, Darius Garland to LA. We got the stuff earlier this morning that Anthony Davis is on the move to Washington in a move for the future to join Trae Young. And then moments ago, JVT, our Hornets doing something to potentially upgrade. What can you tell the people?
So it does look like the Charlotte Hornets have made a move here. They have flipped Colin Sexton and 3 second-round picks. They will receive Kobe White, and they will receive Mike Conley Jr. So this is a pretty interesting deal here. I think it should be a 3-team deal with the Thunder. We'll see if that's the case. But either way, Kobe White and Conley are going to be a part of the Hornets backcourt now, especially the bench depth. Look, I think that's pretty good. Colin Sexton's fine, but you're getting a little bit more of a veteran presence there in Conley. You're getting a pretty good scoring guard there in Kobe White. And very clearly the goal for the Hornets now is to make a push for the playoffs and the play-in. And I think that's obviously a pretty good situation for all of us who have some Charlotte Hornets futures. As we've talked about a lot, feel very confident that this win total is going to get there. Now it's about sweating out some of these big prices to get to the play-in, to get to the playoffs. They're going to be heavily favored now, I think, to make the play-in. And they're getting to be to the point, where they're going to be favored to make the playoffs. But we'll see. The other big sweat, Stormy, that many have thrown out there, Mitch Moss included, have been the division in the Southeast. We'll see if that's the case. There are reports out there that Miami was pushing to go and get Ja Morant. Don't know if that's actually going to happen, but the Charlotte Hornets clearly have a goal to get to the postseason. And in fact, I don't know if we had talked about this the other day. There were reports weeks ago that they were maybe thinking about shipping off Miles Bridges. They have changed course on that, and they want to keep him, and they want to make this team better. So the recent stretch has caused this team to buy in, and we've got a team that at least very much is trying to fight to make the playoffs now.
And while that is great news for us, good news for hockey fans out there in LA, because we talked about this yesterday about how with the Olympic break coming up this week is kind of a trade deadline of sorts for the NHL as well, even though the true deadline doesn't come until March. There is a freeze that is going to take place through February 22nd with the Olympic break. And the big name that everybody was wondering about, where is Artemi Panarin ultimately going to go, as he's not been out there for the Rangers. We have that news with Emily Kaplan breaking the news for ESPN. The LA Kings have acquired Artemi Panarin for the Rangers in exchange for a conditional third-round pick and prospect Liam Greentree. So big news in the National Hockey League as well. And LA has kind of lacked a true game changer on the wing, somebody who can tilt a playoff series. We have seen that all too well, especially remember last year. I was very high on Los Angeles early on in the playoffs. And what did they do? Crash and burn per usual against the Edmonton Oilers. So this could be the addition that they are looking for. He could be a transformative addition for the Los Angeles Kings. Look at us with all this breaking news today.
Let me ask you, so would this be a sign of the Rangers potentially selling? Like, do they have other pieces to sell? I know they've been wildly disappointing. Could this be the start of like a shipping off a ton of pieces?
I wouldn't say that's impossible, but Panarin specifically, because of what the contract would entail, has been a piece that everyone expected this was going to happen at some point. I don't know what the Rangers want to do big picture, but at the state of their season, it would not surprise me at all. No, JVT, the way that their year is gone.
Because their point total's 76.5, so that's why I was curious. Like, if this is the start of maybe like, an avalanche of guys to be shipped off or whatever it is. Yeah, whether it was worth looking at under 76.5. Yeah.
Potentially, I need to look at their strength of schedule the rest of the way, but I could absolutely see that being an angle, JVT. We'll have more hockey a little bit later on in the program as well. I do have some best bets on the card for today, but I want to hit on some Super Bowl stuff here if we can, because for as many of the markets that are available and we dive into the metrics, there's a lot of fun stuff too that there actually is some information out there on. Gatorade's not one of them, though. Like, you have to have an inside man to actually be profitable in this, or feel very, very confident that whatever you saw in the AFC or NFC championship is what it's going to be. And we have seen that in years past, although we didn't see Gatorade pours in this year's conference championships. But I bring up the Gatorade markets because while we have been stuck at that 4.5 for the majority of the past week on the Seattle Seahawks as a 4.5 point favorite, we've actually seen a lot of movement in the Gatorade market. and I love it. So, and this is only available in certain states and in Canada as well. But Orange, for inquiring minds, opened a plus 220 favorite, was leapfrogged by Blue on the board, going from plus 260 to plus 200 on a short shot. And now we're seeing Orange as a favorite again at plus 260. At plus 240, excuse me, and Blue and Yellow as kind of like co-second shots at plus 260. Very intriguing stuff, JVT.
It is. I'll do my best to see if I can get some information out here as to
Please do.
What color the Gatorade will be. There's a lot of training staff, a lot of people wandering around, so maybe just ask a couple of questions here and there and just see what's going on. Now, unfortunately, they're all staying out there in San Jose, Santa Clara, so I'm not really near the teams themselves. At least in New Orleans last year, you knew where the hotel was. You can kind of go by and be like, oh, look, there's some of the equipment. There's okay, oh, Orange, okay. So we can't do that here, unfortunately.
So at least like why some of these numbers are where they are seems very historically based. Orange hasn't seen the light of day since 2020, but it is the most used color that we've seen with 5 the past 16 years. And Seattle used orange when they beat the Broncos in Super Bowl 48. So could it be a good omen with orange? Meanwhile, the Patriots, who are going to be wearing the home whites, we hear from former athletes a lot. They don't like using orange. They don't like using red because it'll stain their uniforms. Blue is the color that has kind of been cited with the Patriots in this. They have had what? 3 of the last 7 Super Bowl winning teams, plus cool blue. I don't know about you. I just think it's the best flavor. But the Patriots used blue in 2 of their last 3 Super Bowl wins as well, including their most recent in 2019 and their win over Seattle in Super Bowl 49.
There's too much information on this, I would say.
Probably.
So,
but
I mean,
I did the research so
like,
you don't have to.
But what if they don't show it on the broadcast? How does this get cashed?
I'm sure, like, it almost always gets showed, if not live on the replay, no?
Okay, all right. I mean, it's dangerous, but
okay.
I mean, if you want to wager on it, go ahead.
Some final thoughts on this. Red or pink, the fruit punch flavor, bet down from 11-1 to plus 750, but I say that's a St. Jude's play. It's never been done before, so why even put your money on it? It's a Michael Lombardi special.
Really?
Better off just giving it away. Yeah, it's never been used. The second longest drought is water or clear, but that does have the record for most consecutive years back in the day. There were 4 in a row from Super Bowls 27 to 30, 39 to 42, but has been MIA since. And no Gatorade bath used to be an option. Not anymore. Last year was available at 20-1, but I think it's become such a staple that they didn't even want to offer it anymore. Quenching your thirst for knowledge here on Money Moves JVT. I know we'll do the halftime show tomorrow, but I did want to ask you if you had any thoughts on the national anthem as well with Charlie Puth coming down. You're a big Bad Bunny fan, but are you a Charlie Puth fan as well?
I don't know who Charlie Puth is.
What? What do you mean?
Who is that? Yeah, who is that?
Attention?
What do you mean?
You just want attention.
I'm
No?
paying attention. I got nothing.
Wait, really? Or like We Don't Talk Anymore? He has a lot of really good songs. I think he's probably better known for producing and some of the big name songs he didn't actually sing on. But he's a really good singer, yeah.
If it's the We Don't Talk Anymore that I'm thinking of, I would assume that's the one. Then, okay, yes. I've heard the song. He's probably one of the guys that, as many artists are, I probably could not tell you any of his songs, but if you were to play a song, I would say, oh, I've heard that before. So,
yes.
No, I do not know. Has he sung anthems before? Do we have any track record here?
So there's not track record from what I can see. His prop is set at 119 and a half, 120 and a half seconds. So will it be over or under 2 minutes, essentially? But what I was looking at was all of the commentary he's talked about in really putting a special arrangement together. And he's the first New Jersey native to sing the national anthem since Whitney Houston in 1991. And while the tweet that he posted back in December said, I'll never claim to be as good a singer as Whitney Houston ever was, but I'd assure you we're putting something really special together, adding, quote, it'll be one of my best vocal performances. So I think naturally that does lend you to think it'll be an over if he's trying to do a little bit more for this thing. But what I was specifically looking at, JVT, is will the last note be over or under 3.5 seconds? Because I feel like that's where you would bet the over, right? Because somebody who's trying to show off their vocals a little bit, just extending that final brave a little bit longer than you might need to.
I think that makes more sense than the rest of it. that's something I could probably get down with. I think you probably just would you cross-check Whitney Houston's? You said Whitney Houston. I'm sorry, right? That was the
yes.
Hers
was shorter.
Here? Yeah. So wouldn't you? Okay, I was going to say, wouldn't you go back and look at the way that she has sung them, and then maybe try to see what's going on there, and maybe he just tries to mirror that performance.
Hers was shorter, but it was also 1991, and I feel like it's become such a different production now in 2025 than it was back then. Am I wrong? Like we saw what John Baptiste did last year. Yeah, it's a totally different thing now. We have also had 5 straight overs in the anthem based on the posted number, 3 straight overs on a singer whose prop was set at 119.5 or higher. I love that there are trends for this stuff. I know you make fun of me for this, but I think it's fascinating. There's also prop on will a coach or player who's shown on the broadcast cry during the anthem, and I was surprised that was only minus 230 for the yes. The no is plus 184. But so many different options on this stuff. I'm here for it. Now, you unfortunately will not find these in the VSiN Super Bowl betting guide, but I can add an addendum if we need. That said, Super Bowl betting guide is chock full of awesome wagers that you can bet at sportsbooks across the country as we're heading into the big game. Remember right now, the best part about this is you can go 2 ways. You can either join us on a full-time basis as a VSiN Pro subscriber where you get the guide for free in addition to everything else that we do at the network right now. Or if you go to VSiN.com/guide, you can buy the guide a la carte, $19.99. Get all of the best bets from all of our show hosts and guests, their favorite props, different analyzers, AI prop tools, all of it available right now. We got to step aside here on Money Moves, but throughout the course of the hour, we will hear some interviews that JVT has gathered out there at Media Row from the Super Bowl, including with 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden, and a whole lot more as we forge on.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
I'll tell you, something I did not have on my bingo card today, all that I am learning about the Fast and the Furious. And speaking of car movies, did you know that you gas up with the Upside app right now and you can earn free real cash back every time you fill up? Use the promo code SPORTS. You get 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves. But as I was talking about the national anthem and Charlie Puth, who is singing, JVT was very upset with me after Googling him that I didn't mention the Fast and the Furious song, and I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's like the goodbye ode to Paul Walker.
I just don't know that much about Fast and the Furious. I didn't realize that was that song specifically made for that moment in the movie. It's a great song.
I mean, now you're getting too deep. Why would I know that? I just know that was the song they played at the end of the movie that they said goodbye to Paul Walker.
You're berating me in the commercial break for not knowing this and sending me AI photographs of him, so I don't know.
What kind of photographs? Well, how did you describe that photograph?
Hot ones. Paul Walker is a very attractive man. What do you want from me? Let's get into it. Is a Wednesday, what does that mean here on Money Moves? It means it's time for West Coast Bias.
Stormy and JBT breaking down the coast that matters. This is West Coast Bias.
Let's do it. We got a handful of games on the West Coast, Best Coast, and college basketball today, including what I would say, I think it's fair to say, JVT, a very important game for the BYU Cougars on the road at Oklahoma State today. BYU very clearly needs a win. They've dropped 3 of their last 4. They got to go on the road to get it. I know some people might look at this on the surface and say it's a look-ahead spot with Houston coming up, but with the way that they have struggled, I think this game, to make sure that they are in a good spot going out to Houston, like this is a gotta-have-it type of a performance. What are your expectations for BYU tonight?
No, I think you nailed it, and I think that's why you see maybe some of the, we'll call it discrepancy in the market versus some of the projections. Ken Palm's got this at about 5. Bartorovic's got this at about 4.5, and yet you saw some of those. I think I saw some 6.5s out there. Is that where we're still at right now with this one? Yeah,
6.5
I think the
to
market's
7.5
definitely
in some spots.
Yeah, I think the market's definitely, what's the word I'm looking for here? What's the term I'm looking for? Marching to the beat of your drum here, Stormy. They're believing that this should be a bounce-back spot for BYU, that they will take this very seriously. Because you're right, in usual circumstances, I think that this was, as a situational bettor, you would look at this and say, all right, well, with Houston on deck, you're probably kind of looking ahead. But the fact that you've lost 3 out of 4 in what is a brutal conference, one would assume that you're going to put your best foot forward here against a beatable opponent in Oklahoma State. And I think that they'll do just that. I mean, obviously the market has kind of worn off and really factored this in. So you're really buying at the top here. But I think Oklahoma State might be in a little bit of a, at least get the full brunt of force here from BYU. And let's also keep in mind the Cowboys have been a very poor defensive team in conference play. They're 13th in Big 12 play in defensive rating. They have not been great in terms of just turning teams away, especially from beyond the arc. They're 37.4% three-point shooting against rate, so they give up some open threes as well at that. They are a team that has been kind of beat up a bit, and I think that is going to be something that BYU will feast on here. Numbers a little high. Maybe you sit back and wait in game, but I think you're absolutely right with the way that this thing has moved. The market is very much betting on a bounce back here for the Cougars.
Yeah, I think if you can still find a 6.5, that would probably be worthwhile. But to your point, in-game options are always available. And BYU, quite frankly, has been in trailing game states a lot lately. So maybe you can find a position where you can get a better number on them. To your point about Oklahoma defensively struggling, over the last month, they and BYU both struggling a lot in effective field goal percentage defensively. BYU 304th in that area. Oklahoma State 238th. Oklahoma also a team that fires from deep, and BYU's allowed opponents to shoot 40% from three over their last 6 games. So maybe that total, I know it's high at 167.5 and climbing, but perhaps a total angle as well in this game. Another nationally ranked team out here on the West Coast, number 6, Gonzaga, laying a hefty number at Portland tonight. Total, I believe, still 152.5, but Zags off to a great start this year, 22-1. Their lone loss in the early season, a neutral site game to Michigan. They're riding a 15-game win streak. Have not covered, though, JVT, in any of their last 3. So Portland, perhaps a welcome opponent in that sense on a 3-game skid, which includes a 30-point loss to Washington State, a 23-point loss to Pacific. The Zags did get Graham Ike back on Saturday for their win over St. Mary's, and don't expect him to play a full game if they're up big late in this one, but at least worth noting for sure.
Yeah, and well, what arbitrary benchmark do you want to use here for Portland? Do you want to note that they have failed to cover their last 2 games? Do you want to zoom out and say that they have covered 5 out of the last 8? Do you want to zoom further out and say they've covered 6 out of the last 9? It depends on what arbitrary data point you want to use to make your point here, which is you could say that they are skidding right now, and the number is not long, but I would say that the problem with the team like Gonzaga, you are so highly power rated. The market really does not respect the conference that you're in for the most part. And these are some really lowly rated teams. It might be an ugly sweat, but maybe it is actually taking 22.5 here with Portland and asking them to just hang on for dear life inside of a big number. Saw it with Syracuse the other day against North Carolina. You can come back and get inside of a number that's relatively large. That was, I think, 11.5. Now you have here 22.5. But do you want to sit back and sweat out the Portland Pilots against Gonzaga and watch the Bulldogs just absolutely run roughshod over them and pray that you get inside of the back door? I'm good on that one.
Yeah, probably not. One other thing I was looking at here, because looking at some of the defensive metrics, was leaning toward an over this total 152.5. But Zags unders have been so profitable lately. They're riding a 5-game under streak, 8 of their last 10 to the under. I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts on this, because it feels like it could be one that's higher scoring as I was diving into where these teams rank lately. Portland defensively 265th in points per possession allowed, 223rd in 2-point percentage shooting. Zags are 15th in 2-point field goal attempts. They also allow opponents to shoot 36% from 3, 315th in the sport, which is probably a welcome sight for a Zags team that their outside shooters have struggled over the course of the last month. I don't think that Gonzaga is going to put up a monster offensive performance in this game, but I mean, if you're looking at team totals or just this full game over and knowing how the Zags have struggled in that area too, could this be maybe an over game?
Yeah, I think all the points you bring up make a lot of sense here. When you look at the way these two teams play as well, from a pace standpoint, you could get there too. I think maybe the worry you have is if you're absolutely putting it to them, you're calling off the dogs, and what's going to happen there from a scoring standpoint.
I am assuming for you, next on the list that catches your attention is Utah State and New Mexico.
New Mexico seems a little short here, man. So they open up 1.5 in some spots. It's bad. It's up to like 2. Some spots are kind of eking out to 2.5, as you see right here if you're watching up at VSiN.com or YouTube TV. I think you know this, but I like this New Mexico team quite a bit. I've been a fan of Olin and the way that he has coached, but this New Mexico group looks absolutely fantastic. And at the very least, I don't think you're power rating Utah State to the point where you think that they are head and shoulders, or just, I shouldn't say head and shoulders, clearly better than New Mexico because they have a strong home court. The pitch should be worth a little bit more. At the very least, Stormy, they should be getting home court, I believe, New Mexico. So this seems somewhat light. And you talk about projections and where some of these are at. A little off of the Ken Pom projection here. He's got that at 3, I believe. You look at some of the other spots, it is flipped. Now, it depends on which projections you like the best, but Bartorvik's actually got this as a 2-point victory for Utah State. But I like this Lobos team a lot. The way that they can defend along the perimeter. When I was out there, when they were in town, I was talking with Jeff Grammer, who covers the Lobos really well out in New Mexico for the Albuquerque Journal. And he was breaking down the way that they defend and how they give up a very high rate of 3-point attempts. In fact, they're in the top of the country, or bottom, however you want to look at it, in 3-point attempts against, and yet they're at the top of the country in terms of opponent 3-point percentage. They game plan so well, helping off the right guys, giving up the right open looks, and it's a lot about what this coaching staff does, and they're very, very skilled offensively, both up front and the backcourt. I think they deserve a little bit more respect here against Utah State, so I'm glad the market's kind of pushing this out. I would disagree with the Bartorvik projection. I think that this should be about a 2.5, 3-point spread for New Mexico.
Yeah, to your point, the 1.5s in favor of the Lobos didn't last very long, as we are sitting at least 2.5 across the board. And this is the shortest number we've seen for New Mexico at home since being a 1-point dog against Santa Clara back at the beginning of September, and they blew them out. They have been very good at the pit. First game also, though, since Utah State, since early December at South Florida, that they've been an underdog. So, excuse me, that's what I meant, December, not September. Yep. Obviously, we know what sport we're playing right now. Anything else, though, on the West Coast, Best Coast that caught your attention?
Yeah, outside of the ones that we've already discussed here up to this point, there's a couple of others. I do wonder, like San Diego at St. Mary's. I know it's a big spread, but I always like to look at these teams bouncing back from a disappointing performance, you would say, right? You just played Gonzaga. Now what do we do coming back and hosting a lowly team like the San Diego Toreros? Are you up for it, or do you kind of sleepwalk through it? Do you want to, BYU's a little bit of a different scenario because they've lost these consecutive games where they're going to be really focused against a lowly opponent. But what's this going to look like for St. Mary's? I'm curious to see if 19.5 holds up here for the Gales, because right now we saw this open 20.5, and we're starting to see that kind of dip down. And I think the market's right in taking the points there with the Toreros.
Okay, and total in that one, 148.5. Remember, everybody, stop paying full price for gas. You can download the free Upside app and earn real cash back every time you fill up. It's quick, it's easy. It actually adds up. Drivers are earning $200 to $300 a year just by buying the gas they already needed. Use the promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first take. Offers vary by user and location. See upside.com for details. And per our producer, Justin Emery, the song that we were talking about with Paul Walker was written as a tribute for him after he passed away, and the music video is the all-time most liked video on YouTube. The more you know.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The Sports Betting Network, Wednesday edition of the program. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We are both on the West Coast, albeit in different locations. I'm live as always in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. JVT is on site in San Francisco, helping us get geared up for Super Bowl 60. Both you and Dustin Sweetelson out there collecting interviews. We're going to play some of the sound that we've heard from today. But, generally speaking, how has it been out there? Is today, have you seen more familiar faces today than usual? I know you mentioned the Pro Bowl, obviously. You're saying at that hotel, so lots of athletes for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So, I'm bumping shoulders quite literally with some folks around here. Last night, I got to, who did I run into? It was Garrett Bowles was out here, believe took part in the Pro Bowl. There's a lot of faces. I mean, it's funny. I tried. It didn't really work. But your guy, Michael Irvin, you got an interview with him during the national championship, did you not? I tried to name drop you, and he just walked by me, so that didn't really work out for me too well. But no, it's getting a lot more crowded. There's a lot of faces out here. There's a lot of very big names. Terrell Owens was one of the names that was out here, among some others. So you're starting to get some big ones. I think Marshawn Lynch is out here as well. I haven't seen him yet. Working on getting something with him. So we'll see if we can get some of these guys. But for the most part, yeah, there's a lot of people. I saw the Golics. Golick Senior,
boys?
not the other Golick, not Golick Junior. Golick Senior didn't have time for me, which is interesting because I make time for Golick Senior quite often.
Keep working on it. I'll see what we can do. For Marshawn Lynch, though, just drop a bunch of Skittles on the ground like a trail of breadcrumbs, and then maybe all of a sudden he'll arrive at your desk, and that'll be a beautiful, beautiful thing for the both of you.
For our audience who's wondering as well, you just do that for Stormy Buonantony. It's the Nerd Gummy Clusters, and she'll pop up at your house.
You nailed that, actually. That's extremely accurate. I'm like a little leprechaun. That's my pot of gold at the end, is just Nerds Gummy Clusters. I'm here for it. I was going to say, T.O., I've only interviewed him once, and oddly enough, it wasn't in a football capacity at all. A few years ago, they were trying to bring slam ball back. I don't know if you remember that at all, like the trampoline basketball stuff. They were hosting it at Cox Pavilion here in Vegas. What?
I'm just going to throw this out there, okay? I know you got to work the sidelines for it. Let's not act like you're the only person who knows what slam ball is, okay? Because 11-year-old Jonathan Von Tobel watched a ton of slam ball on like Spike TV or whatever year it came out. It was fantastic. So your elitism here, it is ruffling my feathers.
I'm just saying, it's back in the day. It's an older thing. I don't know if people realize that it got brought back for a time. Anyways, it was very, very fun. And T.O. was like out here in Vegas doing a bunch of stuff, and he ended up just popping his head in at some games randomly one day. And it was cool to get to talk to him. And as a 49er fan, specifically, very cool. That said, you were talking to some pretty cool people, including Bryant McFadden, a former longtime Pittsburgh Steeler, two-time Super Bowl champ. And I loved the conversation surrounding kind of him from a DB perspective, talking about JSN. So take a listen to JVT and McFadden earlier.
If you're one-on-one with Jackson Smith-Njigba, what do you see from him that you as a corner would really key on?
Man, he's such a smooth route runner. I say this all the time about JSN. He's a football player that happens to play the wide receiver position. Those guys are very, very talented, and he's a hard-nosed player. But I think when you're playing against a guy like Jackson, it's important to try to be as physical as possible, to try to make things a little difficult for him, not allowing free releases off the line of scrimmage, to get into his routes, to be able to display his route running ability. So it wouldn't be one player that's, really all in the game plan. The safeties, the nickels, everyone. Because the thing about JSN, they move him around so much. If you look at the last 2 years, he dominated in the slot, and then they moved him outside, more of an outside receiver, and he's dominated as well. So the versatility is there. But wherever he is, you got to have, where is JSN? You know what I mean? And one example I like to highlight, the NFC Championship game in the red zone.
Can I guess?
Yes.
When he's in the backfield behind Cooper. That was a brilliant play call.
See, the thing about that is that he lined up on the weak side, and he motioned to the strength. So initially when the Rams defenders saw him moving in motion, they were anticipating him going all the way out as a wide receiver. But Clint Kubiak, being the genius that he is, he stopped him in the backfield. And now the linebacker has to account for him. And that was a great design. They were looking for quarters coverage. That's what they got. That was a quarters beater, and great execution that led to a touchdown.
So the Patriots, what they've been deciding to do a little bit more, it seems, in the postseason is blitz a lot more. So how does that match up with having a receiver like Jackson Smith-Njigba? I mean, you're sending more. That means mathematically there's fewer now in coverage. Do you think they continue to do that with a receiver on the other side like him?
You have to. You have to take, timely shots and being aggressive and sending blitz concepts. The thing that I love with the Pats, they have two corners that have been playing some of the best football in the more critical moments of the season. Right, you look at Gonzo, Christian Gonzalez, he's been phenomenal. He's allowed a 0 passer rating in the playoffs in the fourth quarter. 0 passer rating. That's how dominant he's been in the fourth quarter. Carlton Davis has been phenomenal as well. So you got two high-level corners that's playing with a lot of confidence that I believe they will be ready to go. But ideally, we all want to see Christian Gonzalez line up on JSN.
So how do you – I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because he's one of the premier corners in the game, and clearly he's one of the best corners in this game coming up on Sunday.
So, JVT, with that in mind, I know you have been somebody who's kind of been beating the drum from an MVP standpoint that JSN is somebody who would be worth a flyer on. When you look at kind of that New England defensive backfield that Bryant McFadden's talking about there, do you think that aligns with JSN having a good day? I know they've elevated, but is JSN kind of that unstoppable force enough to put you in a good position?
I think so. You pair him up with Clint Kubiak, who's been a great offensive mind, who's probably going to be the Raiders head coach now next season. But Kubiak's done a brilliant job with moving him around everywhere. As you heard me get giddy over my favorite play call of the season in the NFC Championship game, Kubiak's done a brilliant job of not just putting him in one spot and allowing him to be covered, essentially. They've moved him around. They found creative ways to get him open. This is the Super Bowl. Stormy, they're going to do everything possible to get him in different positions to succeed. And you couple that with the fact, you've talked to a couple of people about this Patriots shift on defense, now relying a little bit more on blitzing and blitzing at a higher rate. That's going to open it up. I don't know if you know this, but mathematically, the more you send, the fewer there are to cover. And I think that they're going to be really kind of primed, the Seattle Seahawks, to take advantage of that when it happens. And that could lead to some big plays for a JSN. So I'm kind of the mindset that he is something that is inevitable, that he is just so good. He's going to be so highly targeted. He's going to be put everywhere that he will put up his numbers. Whether or not that is good enough to win MVP, we will see. But I do think he is going to have a strong game, as he has proven to have almost every time out.
JSN like Thanos in the Avengers. I am inevitable. Mm-hmm. Plus 550 in the MVP market right now, behind only Sam Darnold and Drake May. You also had a good conversation about Nick Emanwari. Here is more from that conversation with Bryant McFadden.
Nick Emanwari. Mm-hmm. How good is this kid?
Man, Nick Emanwari is like their version of Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
The versatility, very, very lengthy, athletic, nimble. You can use him in the blitz concepts. He's an asset in the running game.
He seems really strong on the edge. Like when they're defending the run, it seems like he's really strong when he's down there.
When he got drafted in the second round, I was a fan of Nick Emanwari at South Carolina. His freshman year was phenomenal. Like, people just kind of got on to his game, but his freshman year, he kicked down the door in the SEC and was dominated. And when they drafted him and knowing where Mike McDonald came from, I said he's going to be their Kyle Hamilton. Right? And now we're seeing him become one of the best defensive players on a talented defensive unit. But just the versatility. He's a 5'2" player. Yeah. You know, you can do a lot with him. You know, in coverage, we saw him playing coverage, great coverage on Puka Nacua last week, Devontae Adams. You don't see a guy who's 6'3", 220 plus covering like he covers, and then the way he tackles as well. Nick Emanwari and Devon Witherspoon are pretty much the two peas in a pod together.
Safe to say, based on those comments, JVT, that Drake May might have his hands full in the downfield passing game against those two guys?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I don't know if we have time. Maybe we'll hear from Steve Palazzolo coming up a little bit later. He works for the 33rd team. We talked a little bit about what May's got in store for him, but Emanwari's great. He's probably not going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition, but he has been a big reason why this team has been as successful as they have been, both against the run and through the air. Very opportunistic, good at breaking up passes. And as I mentioned there with McFadden, when you watch him, Stormy, very strong on the edge, setting that as a DB and not allowing guys to break contain regularly. It's one of the reasons why, if you look at some of the statistical profiles of Seattle, you talk about second level yards per carry, open field yards allowed per carry. They're still a top 10 unit across the board against the run.
Obviously, it would take something, and I just still have the MVP odds pulled up here, 75-1 for Emanwari, 100-1 for Witherspoon, but it would take something really special for a defensive player to get there. We've talked about it a lot, and I know it's low-hanging fruit, but this is one of those markets where it feels like it's just kind of a better price from a quarterback standpoint for the money line based on the narratives around these two quarterbacks with Sam Darnold or Drake May. JSN kind of feels like the other option, but other names are kind of hard to come by, it seems, in this market. By the way, as you were gearing up for Super Bowl 60, you got to have the right spread. Everybody knows it. Super Bowl Sunday is all about the food, and football meets flavor with VSiN and Omaha Steaks. Right now, you spend $129. You can score 2 pounds of fully cooked chicken wings plus 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com/VSiN. Don't wait. Get 2 pounds of free chicken wings. Save 50% off site-wide steaks and more when you spend $129. omahasteaks.com/VSIN. That's omahasteaks.com/VSiN. Minimum purchase required. See site for details. And we'll play some more from out there in San Francisco when we come back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This Wednesday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And since JVT has been doing such a great job out there in San Francisco, getting interviews, different thoughts on the Super Bowl, as obviously we approach Super Bowl 60 coming up on Sunday. So many opinions, betting angles, perspectives. You mentioned before we hit the break last segment, Steve Palazzolo was somebody that you spoke to, host of Check the Mic. He's an analyst for the 33rd team, about kind of what Drake May, the expectations, what we've seen from him in the playoffs. Take a little listen to part of JVT's conversation with Steve.
There's some truth in your play. I still think the Texans, if they had pulled off another win or two, we're looking at them as one of the best defenses of the century. I mean, you're putting them with the 2015 Broncos and 2013 Seahawks, 0-2 Bucks. So I think the Texans are that good, and the Chargers and Broncos are really good as well. So that's part of it. I think Drake was trying to do a little too much. There were times, he's got pressure in his face, and he's still trying to throw through it, and that was leading to some fumbles. I thought the Broncos game, a lot of the people who didn't like Drake May coming out of college would cite, hey, he's missing some easy throws, he's bouncing it, he's just missing. He started to do that a little bit in the Broncos game. Plus, but you have to adjust for the conditions too. It's windy, it's cold. That stuff does matter. It's a lot different than playing in a dome, playing in a controlled environment. So I think there's a little bit of signal there that, hey, you run into some tough defenses. You had a tough time of it, but I still think great overall season for May. And if he went out there and it's going to be a challenge against the Seahawks, but in each game, he found a way to win, not just found a way to win, but found a way to make a big play. Downfield throw against the Texans, big runs against the Broncos, flea flicker pass against the Broncos, big tight window touchdown against the Chargers. That's been the difference for May. It hasn't been all of a disaster. Yeah. There's been a few big plays there, and I think that might be all he needs on Sunday against the Seahawks.
In that big run against the Broncos, I'm calling in his own number as well. Certainly doesn't look like a second-year player in the NFL. That said, this Seahawks defense, it's not going to get easier with this defense in particular that he has to face, even after what he just saw with the Broncos and the Houston Texans. So how do you think that Drake May is going to perform when all is said and done?
Yeah, I think he'll likely struggle again, but I thought Steve brought up some great points there when you look at the little moments in all of those games leading up to this run for the Patriots, Stormy, that he did do enough, if you will. Those moments, the big throws, the flea flicker, as he mentions, the runs, doing enough. But here's the thing, and this is kind of goes full circle here, that leads then to pressure on the Patriots defense. The way that you can play at a substandard level to your own expectations, because Drake May was brilliant throughout this regular season, is that you have a defense that keeps you in a lot of these games. So then when you are struggling the way that you are, those big plays can then make the difference in a lot of those contests. So that needs to happen as well. So if Drake May does struggle, then he still has the ability to, okay, we haven't been playing that well, but I'm still in a one-score game, and I can use my legs here, or I can throw a ball, I can throw a deep pass here that is the most accurate in the NFL, and that will be enough to win this. And it's oddly enough, right? It all balances each other out. But Drake May, in the way that he can impact this game, does rely on his defense, I think, to an extent, and whether or not he'll be in position to make those plays that he has throughout the postseason.
Worth noting, at least on the ground, we talked about it earlier this week, the way his rushing yards prop has been bet up from 30.5 up to 38.5 now, and it seems like that's kind of been the peak where we have stopped. We'll see if as more public money comes in throughout the course of the week as we get closer to Sunday, if it does continue to go up or not. I know you are on the under there. Meanwhile, Steve was also very complimentary about the opposing quarterback in Sam Darnold and his ability to bounce back.
I mean, the first half of the season, his numbers were insane. Yeah. I think it was the Cardinals game around week 10 where they dominated, and he got to a point where he was averaging 10 yards per attempt on the season. That's like a wild number, and he still landed at like 8.7, which in totality, it's a great year. I think they were just playing so efficiently, and he was completing 60% on 20-plus yard throws. Like, those are just unsustainable numbers. He just kind of came back down to earth. Going back to the pitching thing, I had a pitching coach who said you got to have amnesia, right? Like when you have a bad outing, you have to be able to bounce back. I've been impressed with Darnold's ability to do that, given the history, given the seeing ghosts, thing with New England and the Jets. His ability to bounce back from a 4-interception game, or even just the 2 interceptions in the second Rams game, which were bad, right? I mean, one's almost a pick 6, one's in the red zone, and they still came back Thursday Night Football against the Rams. 38-37. I've been impressed with Darnold's ability to bounce back from disappointment. And, whatever people have been asking him this week, silence the doubters and the haters and all this stuff. And he's like, I'm just trying to get better, So I've been impressed by that. Because that maybe early in his career would have derailed him if he had a few mistakes. But he made some mistakes in Minnesota, made some mistakes in Seattle, within games, within, week to week, and still bounce back. The weird part about Minnesota is it all happened at the end of the season. We didn't get a chance to see him bounce back until the season started. So I've been impressed with Darnold's resiliency. His arm, he's zipping it since he had that oblique injury. He was on the injury report. All of a sudden, his arm's looking a little crisper. I've been impressed by Darnold and his ability to handle adversity all throughout this thing. So I think he'll have a strong game.
Again, that's Steve Palazzolo talking to JVT out there in Radio Row, host of Check the Mic, analyst for the 33rd team. And I think that's the fear, though, JVT, for any of us that are backing Seattle, is Sam Darnold going to revert to that guy that we had seen? But you and I have talked about it a lot. Can we just accept that he is a good quarterback now, that the sample size we've seen over the course of the last 2 years, and as Steve pointed out, his ability to bounce back even when he has faced adversity in game has been proven now?
Yeah, and there's stretches to this. I mean, look at the way you want to cut it up. As he was referencing there, Stormy, we have talked about this a lot. That was an MVP eliminator the first time he played Matthew Stafford in the Los Angeles Rams. He was playing so well, and then he loses that game. He throws the 4 picks. He goes on for the rest of the season, plays essentially to a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Completion percentage goes down. Average of the target goes down. Yards per attempt goes down. And then even in that stretch, what does he do? He helps this team get to this point, and he caps it off, at least this current run, with a dominant performance in the NFC Championship game that looked absolutely incredible on an injured oblique. So the ability to bounce back has come in wide swaths, whether it's game to game or whether it's over stretches of a season. He has proven to do just that. So given the fact that this Patriots team has improved, but there were signs throughout the year that they were a pretty average defensive unit on the back end, maybe with Clint Kubiak, with Jackson Smith-Njigba, bringing it back to what we talked about with Brian McFadden, that this is going to be an opportunity for him to have another big game, as Palazzolo said right there.
Okay, JVT, last couple minutes. Let's get to the best bets, and let's start with you because I got clobbered yesterday. So let's start with the positives and what you had and what you've got in pocket for today.
Just one positive, so I guess it's a positive we'll take. Buffalo plus 5.5. How does Miami, Ohio continue to get this done? Another one-score game that they just barely pull off. I did not get my Babe Ruthian shot of Buffalo winning the game, but the Bulls do cover 5.5 against Miami, Ohio. By the way, before we get to my best bet, did you see the way that UNLV and Fresno State ended last night, Stormy?
I did not.
UNLV gave up a 7-0 run in the last 6 seconds to lose the game to Fresno State at the buzzer.
Because of course they did.
Incredible. Yes, an incredible ending for anybody who wanted to stay up late at night. 80 free throw attempts. I believe they had 8 reviews in the game. The game was 3 hours long. It was an insane game yesterday between UNLV and Fresno State. So prayers up to anybody out there who had UNLV in that spot. I think our own Adam Burke had them there. A very tough loss for anybody to eat that one. But for today, I do think the Cavs are the spot tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers. So we're going with best bets. They have been playing with this current version of their roster. They're not feeling the absence of Darius Garland. He hasn't been there for a while. Evan Mobley is out, but they've been playing without him as well. Meanwhile, I think the Clippers are going to feel the absence of Harden in the early going since the trade deadline. So we'll go with Cavaliers -2 today.
Okay, I mentioned I got clobbered. I was texting our own Jonathan Davis about this yesterday. I was on a nice 7-2 run in hockey, and then I just got demolished yesterday. 0 for 4 on the ice. I lost my basketball bet too. So I don't we got him for John, but I do have some plays today, and hopefully after the Oilers crushed my soul yesterday, they can give me some redemption in a positive and I guess negative way today. In the Battle of Alberta hosting the Flames, Oilers can't play defense. Listen to the number of goals they've given up the last 6 games: 5, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the Penguins. I mean, 3 of those were still wins, by the way, because of how capable they are scoring. So can you just give me an alt over 5.5 parlayed with an alt over 5.5 in the Minnesota-Nashville game as well? That's plus 140. I did play the standard over total of 6.5 for that Minnesota-Nashville game as well as the first period over. And I gave you a lot of these numbers earlier this week because this has been something we've been playing for a while. Minnesota, 10 of their last 11 games with 7+ combined goals on a 17-2 run to the over. The goals come early enough. often. 10-game run to the first period over, 13 of their last 15. On the Nashville side, they're coming off a game against St. Louis in which they trailed 4-1 JVT, came all the way back to win 6-5 in regulation. Their offense has been having more success at home as well, gone full game over back-to-back games. Also saw 8 of their last 10 full games go over the posted total. So rolling with it there. And then to close things out, San Jose, Macklin Celebrini, their stud, over 3.5 shots on goal, even money at Colorado. He's had 5 back-to-back games, 4+ in 5 of 6 and 7 of the last 9, averaging nearly 3.5 per game and 3.78 shots on goal on the road. You're getting even money because it's the Avs who give up the 7th fewest shots on goal against. But previous 2 games against Colorado this season, 3 and 6 respectively. An Avs team that's reeling a little bit right now, 3 and 7 their last 10, giving up 5+ goals in 4 of them. I feel like he should be someone that's firing on the net and probably will get something through as well. That's a wrap for today. We'll have plenty more tomorrow on Money Moves, breaking down the Super Bowl and more as JVT is out there on Media Row. But keep it locked right here on VSiN. Follow the money with Mitch and Paul coming up after this.